हेलो दोस्तों, स्वागत है आप सभी का हमारे चैनल इग्नो सेंटर पर। तो दोस्तों, आज हम आपको पार्ट 2 का वीडियो में क्वेश्चन नंबर 2 और क्वेश्चन नंबर 3 कराने जा रहे हैं। और आपका हमने पार्ट 1 में क्वेश्चन नंबर 1 और आपको पूरे क्वेश्चंस करा दिया हैं। आप वहां से देख सकते हैं पार्ट 1 का MEG03 ब्रिटिश नोबल का जो सॉल्व असाइनमेंट है, उसका पार्ट 1 में आपको क्वेश्चन नंबर 1 कराया गया है। और ये पार्ट 2 है जिस पर हम क्वेश्चन नंबर 2 और 3 कराने जा रहे हैं। तो दोस्तों, आपका क्वेश्चन है कमेंट ऑन द यूज ऑफ विट एंड आयरनी इन द नोवेल प्राइड एंड प्रेजुडिस। और आपका आंसर रहेगा डेफिनेशन ऑफ आयरनी। प्रोफेसर चिविलियर has largely remarked that the basic feature of every irony is a contrast between a reality and an appearance. In the contrast between the two, the apparent and the surface meaning of a statement and its real intended meaning lies the significance of the irony. Irony is of many kinds: situational irony, verbal irony, irony of the character, and the ironical implication inherent in a statement or a situation. Irony may be tragic or comic, as the ironic writer may look at the contradiction in human nature tragically or comically. Thematic irony. So this was your number 1, thematic irony. Superficially, Jane Austen's themes are didactic, sense and sensibility, may be considered as instructive treatise on the desirability of sense being a moderate, laudable and commendable attribute. On the other hand, sensibility is portrayed as a dangerously excessive attribute. But at another level, in the theme of this novel of Jane Austen are fit for ironic interpretation. In Sense and Sensibility, if the novelist gives importance to sense, she also values sensibility as well. So the message delivered is that both are desirable and necessary for a whole life, but they are mutually exclusive. That is the irony of it. Similarly, Pride and Prejudice illustrate the fault of excessive pride and overweening prejudice. But at another level, the theme of the novel Pride and Prejudice can also be interpreted in different ways. We find contrast between intricacy and simplicity, as it concerns the major character. Darcy and Elizabeth are intricate characters and have depth in them, which involves them in Pride and Prejudice. On the other hand, simplicity is represented by Jane and Bingley. They are simply and their simplicity proved to be an asset for them. Perhaps the writer wanted to convey the idea that both intricacy and simplicity have their own virtue, but the irony is that they are mutually incompatible. So this type of thematic irony sense, though all are noble, situationally irony. Number 2, situationally irony. This novel is packed with situational irony. Collins proposes at a time when Elizabeth is inclined towards Wickham. Moreover, she detests Collins and cannot accept proposal at any cost. Here again, irony lies in the fact that Collins is cocksure that his proposal will be liked by all, but the result shows everything happened contrary to his expectations. Darcy proposed to Elizabeth, but Elizabeth rejected him on account of his excessive pride. The departure of Militia from Meryton was a signal of the end of the relation developing between Lydia and Wickham, but it resulted in the elopement of the Lydia and Wickham. Elizabeth was feeling worthless at the thought that her prospect of marriage to Darcy were completely blasted by the infamy of Lydia's employment. But Actually, it brings Elizabeth and Darcy closer and unites them in matrimony tie. Lady Catherine attempts to prevent the marriage but only succeeds in hastening it. Irony of character. Number 3. Irony of character. There are many examples of irony of character in the novel Pride and Prejudice. It is rather more prominent that irony of situation. Elizabeth, who considers herself most intelligent and pride on her perception, feels humble when she realizes that all her presumptions were wrong and might have brought her own life precariously on the verge of a total failure. Wickham is altogether different and is an unredeemed villain. Though apparently he looked like a refined and graceful personality, Bingley's sisters have no love for Bennet family, for their vulgarity, but they themselves are no better. Darcy is not what he looked to be. Elizabeth becomes prejudiced right from the first meeting, but in the end Darcy helps Bennet family and even marries Elizabeth. As a matter of fact, they are incongruities and contradictions inherent in nature, and Jane interpreted and portrayed them vividly in her novel for the amusement and moral education of the reader. Jane Austen uses irony in the characterization to expose the misunderstanding of various characters against each other as well as their own self-deception. So friends, till here your second question was done, and now we begin with our third questions, which is, sorry do you think the title of Dickens Great Expectation is appropriate? Give reason for your answer. And friend, your answer for these questions is, you might want to relate the choice of title to some of the key themes of this excellent novel, in particular that of class consciousness and transformation. One of the crucial stages of the novel is when Pig goes to Sati's house for the first time and experience the rather uncomfortable epiphany that he is nothing but a common labouring boy who calls the canaves jacks. He comes back home with the ambition of becoming a gentleman and winning Stella. Thus his great expectation comes as something of a dream come true. However, the transformation that this great expectation brings is critically presented by Dickens from the very first. The new clothes that Pipe wear, for example, change the way that characters such as Cook and Trap treat him. But those that love him are not so impressed. Although Pipe in London learned that mannerism and habit of being a gentleman in his character, he is shown to act in a very ungentleman-like fashion. When Geo comes to visit him in London, for example, in addition his great expectations seem to be based around life of idleness, corruption, moral vice, and dissolution. As he lives off the wealth of a convict, Dickens seems to use the phrase great expectation to ironically comment upon the way in which a sudden injection of wealth and status does not automatically equate with great expectation. And in fact, we might argue that Pipe would have been better off and happier had he stayed in the marshes. Throughout his novel, Then Dickens used the phrase to come upon class and the impact of money by showing a way in which it is moral character and maturity that give one truly great expectation. Before discussing the fairy tales element in Great Expectation, I would like you to be aware of a fairly influential body of opinion that sees the fairy tale like quality of Dickens fiction as symptomatic of its moral simplicity. For instance, Franco Moretti has argued in his influential book on European Bildungsroman that Great Impact Expectation is like many other novels that Dickens wrote. Deep down a fairy tale, Moretti compresses this feature of the Dickensian novel unfavorably against the mature realism of 19th century European fiction and argues that Dickens' novels are basically infantile because they are predicated on a fairy tale like division of their world into good and evil. I hope that you see how the historical complexity that Revel is a bring to bear on the fairy tale show up the seductiveness of analyses such as Moretti's that treat the fairy tale like quality of the Dickensian novel as expressive of an infantile imagination that can work only by dividing the world into good and bad. On the contrary, Poist at a critical point of its evolution when Dickens first encountered it. The fairy tale mode opened for England's greatest popular writer. The novelist's possibilities inherent in its past and it in its future. It enabled him to appropriate the destructive forces of its original form and at the same time to replicate perhaps but also to deform. I will try to show that the story of Pipe's expectation replicates in order to subvert the conventional novelization of the fairy tale plots and that the binary worldview that the fairy tale's plot sustains is in Great Expectation so to epitomize not just a childish mode of congenition but also the way that officially society seeks to preserve its own sanctity. So friends, till here your third question's answer of assignment is also done, and now in the next part we begin with our number 4 questions, which is what role do Aziz, Fielding and Godbole play in our passage to India. So friend, hope you all like this video, and if it was helpful to you then press the subscribe button and the bell icon so that you never miss any updates, and keep a thumbs up on our video so that we get courage to help you more and